welcome back to my channel, Savings by the Cup. On today's video, I'm going to have you join me while I count my husband's life savings and tell you a little bit about myself. Before I continue, I'd like to explain to you why I call this my husband's life savings. In all honesty, it's really just a joke. It all started because me and him both primarily use our debit or credit cards to pay for stuff, and we hardly ever have cash. Because of that, our wallets are both not very big, so whenever we run into change, we always just put it into this box and figured that someday we'll see how much is in there, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. When he started, he joked around that this was his life savings, and ever since, it's just kind of stuck around. As you can see, it's primarily coins that we put in here, but occasionally we'll also put a few bills. Now, I know I probably could have rolled this up also while I was recording, but honestly, I didn't have anything to roll it up in, so for now, we're just going to go ahead and count it. Either way, I wasn't planning on cashing this in yet. I was just curious how much was in here. Well, now I guess it's time for me to introduce myself, even though I won't actually be stating my name because my goal with this channel is for me to stay as anonymous as possible for many different reasons. I did figure that it would be a good idea for me to tell you guys a little bit more about myself. To begin, I am 27 years old and I'll be turning 28 in May. I have been married about 2.5 years. We'll go ahead and hit 3 years in June of 2026. I do live in a very small farm town where there really isn't a lot going on. As I've mentioned before in some of my other videos, unfortunately that does mean that groceries locally are a bit more expensive, but I do live close to bigger towns and that's usually where I try to go do my grocery shopping. The only advantage to living in a farm town like this is that we always have a lot of fresh produce. A lot of our friends have trees. For example, my last video where I talked about having a lot of kiwis, we also get a lot of mandarins, oranges around this time of the year, and just different vegetables, so that obviously helps a lot when you're trying to budget. Now, I did want to tell you guys a little bit more about what I do for a living. Currently, I work in an office job at a trade school where I make anywhere about probably $50,000 a year. It's probably closer to 60, but it can be anywhere between 50 to 60 depending on the year. My husband is currently working in EMS. Right now he is an EMT, but he is currently attending school to become a paramedic. Because of that, he is only working 1 day a week, so it's really hard for me to know exactly how much he is making. Every year that we've been married, it's been changing because of changing jobs and stuff like that, but hopefully by June of this upcoming year, he'll be done with paramedic school. And meanwhile, we're just living off my income primarily, so we are trying to stick to a stricter budget so that we can make it through the end of the year without adding any debt. Currently, we don't have any kids, but we do have an orange cat that is about 21 years old. If you look carefully on the right side, you might see him peeking in sometimes. He is very curious, and sometimes he thinks that I'm handling food, so I let him smell one of the coins so that he knew I was not handling any food. Alright, now I'd like to tell you a little bit more about our living situation. So at the moment, we don't own a home. We are renting. We are open to someday maybe buying a home if we can find a good enough deal, but right now while my husband is in school, we're very grateful to be renting, especially because in comparison to other homes, our house is actually for rent super cheap. We only pay $1,000 a month, which is really good for California. This has definitely helped us a lot right now that he is working less, and like I mentioned, it is a house. This is nice because we have privacy and we have a small backyard if we ever want to host anybody over in the summertime. As I mentioned, we did get married 2.5 years ago, but one thing was for sure, ever since then, I've always been big on budgeting. So one thing I knew for sure when we were going to get married is that I definitely did not want to go into debt for our wedding, so we cash flowed everything. We did get help from friends and family, so that helped us be able to splurge on a couple things that we wanted, but we tried to stick as much as possible to our budget. So if you're planning on wedding and would be interested in maybe seeing a video on how I budgeted for our wedding, please let me know in the comments below and I can make a video talking about that. Obviously that did involve a lot of DIY and involved a lot of my time, especially because I was trying to make a lot of the things myself. But like I said, if you're interested in watching that, let me know below and I can make a separate video discussing that. Although we didn't get into debt with our wedding, one thing is that I did come into our marriage with $5,000 on a credit card just from some previous spending and some trips that I had taken before we got married. And I also owed about $15,000 on a car loan. My husband fortunately had no loans or no credit cards. After I got married, I was really focused on trying to pay everything off. So it took me about 6 months, but I managed to pay off the $5,000. And after that, I was really trying really hard to tackle my car loan. So any extra money that I would get, I would put it towards that. However, when I did have only about $2,000 left to pay off on my car, I did get into a really bad crash due to a drunk driver. Since it was a rollover crash where my car rolled over multiple times, my car was completely totaled, so I did end up having to buy a new car. Now, this is the part where I probably didn't make the best decision. I'm pretty sure if I would have bought the exact same car that I had before, I probably would have been able to pay it off and not have any debt left over. But of course, this time around, I wanted to get a new car again, and I wanted to get a nicer model. So I did end up having about $17,000 in debt. So again, I followed the same idea as before. I would throw any extra money, bonus, anything like that towards the car payment. So I did manage to pay about $6,000 in a little less than a year. However, I was able to pay off the rest of it with some help from the insurance. So as of August, I had no more debt at all, including credit card or car loan. Again, this was totally a big blessing, especially with my husband starting off school, because that allows our bills to be a little bit less. However, with my husband going into school, we did have to incur a little bit of debt for that because, for example, his tuition, even though it's not very expensive, we did end up putting that on a credit card. And then on his credit card, we also put things like his book, his uniform, and all that. Meanwhile, I also had quite a few doctor visits and stuff like that come up, so I do unfortunately have some medical debt that I'm slowly trying to pay off as well. So right now, more than ever, it has been super important for us to budget, because not only are we trying to budget to stop trying to get into more debt, but any extra money that we get after budgeting, any extra time from overtime or anything like that, we like to put that money towards paying off our debt. We obviously are doing minimum payments on the credit card, but on top of that, we just throw any extra money towards it. The good thing is that as soon as my husband finishes school, his income will be much higher, so that will make it a bit easier for us to be able to pay everything off. But either way, we are slowly trying to tackle that debt. So that brings us to where we are right now. Currently, we are trying to navigate having lower income and paying all our debt off. So if you are interested in seeing this type of content, if you'd like to know how we budget, if you'd like to know how we plan on paying off the rest of our debt, I also wanted to do a debt confession video as well as a net worth video. If you're interested in seeing any of this type of content, I invite you to please follow and subscribe my channel. I'll definitely be posting more. Now, I'd also just like to tell you thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope to see you next time.